Hey everyone, it's Aaron Ross. I really enjoy being part of this Walk Me event. Now, it's Aaron Ross from Predictable Revenue. Going to answer some questions. So just throw any questions you got here in the chat, and I'll go through them and see what we can do here. All right, here's the first one. Now, there's a question, it's more of a statement, like share some tips for managing a company remotely. Okay, now, like a lot of you, probably a lot of you become employees working remotely, some executives. I have a company, 60 people that we went remote, and we're going to stay remote. So I know it's definitely a big adjustment, even though even I was already remote for 10 years, but no one else was. So what I've learned too are these three things. One, spend extra time defining responsibilities really specifically, and the metrics related to each job, right? And the third, the rhythms of how often you meet with people. So a little bit more like a system to how you sync up with people and gauge what's happening, what's not. The second thing is just you got to work harder to reach out to people and communicate. So we use things like Slack, obviously Zoom or virtual meetings. There's a lot of tools for that. Everyone is just trying to find ways to connect with others, and they still want that human touch. So, but you got to like take the first step and reach out to them. And the third one is measuring employee, whether you call it satisfaction or net promoter score, but kind of how satisfied or dissatisfied are employees. You don't see them in the hallway, you can't kind of get that vibe. So do more surveying to see where the troubles are. All right. All right, there's another question here. Sorry, any tips on balancing work and personal life? All right, so I have a business, running a multi-million-dollar business, again, 60 people. I have 9 kids, 4 dogs. It's never quiet. So again, here's 3 things that I've learned to, first one, especially block out time. Right? For me, there's 4 blocks of time I really work to have in place. Some are easier than others. Family time, of course, work time, romantic time with my wife, which has been a struggle this year, and actually self time for me, which has also been a struggle, which would be things for me to like guitar or exercise. So that's one really important. Calendar drives everything. The other thing is if you have a family, remember that when you're working to make money, like that's still family time. So when you're working, you work, and when you're with them, really do your best to be focused with them. It's quality, not quantity of time. And the last thing is if you're having trouble sticking to a hobby or exercise. I know what's worked for me the best is hiring a trainer or having a buddy to show up for. Like having someone else to show up for, whether they're paid or not, can make all the difference to kind of keeping that habit going, even when I'm feeling tired, exhausted, confused, or uncertain. So got a question here. How do you use WalkMe to automate CRM processes and free up sales professionals? Well, one thing I've noticed, and I've worked with a lot of companies, is that the confusion, the number of systems, the number of apps, and even if you just use one CRM, even though it's never just one CRM, there's like lists and sales engagement. Like salespeople are more confused than ever before and overwhelmed. So one of the things that does help are practices like sales specialization, right? Prospectors do prospect, closers do close, because that helps simplify their jobs. But they are drowning in this overwhelming amount of technology and tools. So when you have something like a WalkMe that can help simplify how people are going to use even your internal tools, and they don't have to go back reference the manuals, which no one reads really anyway, you're really freeing them up to not only be able to use your tools better, right? Because that's what you want. So ideally, they spend less time trying to figure what to do, more time putting the right information, because that's really what really want, so they can help themselves and not get stuck avoiding the tool completely or using it the wrong way, which really is probably, I'd say, like 85% of salespeople struggle with. All right, here's a question. We all know predictable revenue, but how did you come up with a methodology? Well, and I did actually wrote about this in the book, because really, I think there's a couple really important points. Had a business that failed, I'm like, I need to learn sales. And the best way to learn something is to go do it. So I want to get a job in sales. And in trying to figure out how to do outbound prospecting and what worked, I read a whole bunch of books. I probably read 5 or 10 or 15 sales books. I don't remember the exact number. And I tried all those techniques. And honestly, I remember none of them worked. Mailing books or certain cold call techniques, video. And I just said, you know what? I got to throw all that away and just start with kind of my screen and piece of paper and just come up with something different. So I think a lot of it really was starting at the point of knowing I could make a difference, right? Believing that I could solve this and somehow I didn't know how, and giving it a shot, and then kind of trusting, like looking out there for ideas, but then ultimately coming back and trusting the fact that I could come up with ideas in a way that would be meaningful and work. And I see this today because it's a challenge for people. There's so much copy paste solutions out there. So great, go learn from those. But remember, you have ideas, and you can, whatever you're trying to solve, don't be afraid to put your own ideas at work and realize they're not always going to work the first time. It took me 3 months or 4 months to kind of work through things. Like, we're so impatient. You're so impatient. Give your own self and your own ideas a chance to solve whatever you're doing. And that, I think, is something that doesn't happen often enough these days. So I think that's it. I really appreciate your questions here. Hope this helps. I'm going to turn it back to you, Allison. And if you want to find out more from me, you can find me on LinkedIn, Aaron Ross. Or the best place to start on books is probably that From Impossible to Inevitable book at fromimpossible.com.